Before we look at the last few problems for 2.3, there was a question on homework assignment 2.2, question number 21. And the formula is y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. And we want to find the vertex and axis of symmetry for this parabola. Now the axis of symmetry for this here is x is equal to negative b over 2a. Now for us here, b, the value of b would be, so negative 2 over 2 times 1, because a here would be 1, b is 2, and c is 1. So if we simplify this here, we would have negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. So for us here, the axis of symmetry would really just be that x is equal to negative 1. And that'd be the axis of symmetry. Now the other part it asked for was the vertex. Now the vertex is going to be negative b over 2a, comma, f of negative b over 2a. Now we actually already found out what negative b over 2a is. It is just negative 1. So the only other thing we need to find is the y value of the vertex. Now to do that, we just plug negative 1 into the function. So we'd have negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 plus 1. Well, negative 1 squared is 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 plus 1. Well, 1 minus 2 is negative 1 plus 1 is 0. And that would be it. Any other questions on this here? Yes. Any other questions on any of the homework assignments? Are you good with that there? If you still have questions on it, let me know. All right. What we're doing today is, given the equation, we want to find or identify the vertex, focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry of the parabola. Now for the vertex, focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry, if I have the values of h, k, and p, I can find all of them. So we look at this here. We're given the equation y equals 1/8, parentheses, x minus 3 squared plus 2. So looking at this equation, what would the value of h be? Almost. It'd be 3, because the h inside the parentheses, well, we have x minus h. So inside the parentheses of our function, we have x minus 3, so the value of h would be positive 3. Now, if it had been x plus 3 inside the parentheses, then it would be negative 3. Now, what's the value of k? 2. And what's the value of p? We don't really have it yet. We have to really solve for it. But I do know that the 1 over 4p matches up with our 1 over 8. So what we could do is just set it up as 1 over 8 is equal to 1 over 4p. And then we can do what to each side? Multiply both sides by 4p. Now the 4p and 4p will cancel, leaving us with just equals 1. Now 4p times 1/8, well, we can say that's 4p over 8. Well, 4 over 8 would simplify to 1/2, 1 over 2. This 4 over 8's a half. Any questions on this here? And what would we do next? Multiply both sides by 2. Here the 2 and 2 will cancel out, telling me that P is equal to 2. So really our main goal is to find the values of H, K, and P, because once we have all three, then we can find the vertex, focus, and axis of symmetry. Now the vertex is the point, what? H comma K. Well, what's the value of H? The value of K is 2. Now the focus for our equation is the point H comma K plus P. Well, we already said the value of H is 3. Now the value of our Y value of the focus is K plus P. What is K? Plus is, so the focus is the 0.34. Directrix is the equation x is equal to, or sorry, not x equals, it will be y equals K minus P. Well, what is K? Minus P is, 2 minus 2 is 0. So the directrix is y equals 0. And last but not least is the axis of symmetry, which would be x is equal to H, and H is 3. That's it. Once we find H, K, and P, we just plug them back in to get the 4 things we want: the vertex, focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry. Questions on this here? You ready for the next one? Yes. So it matches up with our y equals 1 over 4p times x minus h squared plus k. So in this problem here, what's the value of h? -2. Since it's plus 2 inside the parentheses, the value of h is actually -2. The value of k, 1. And the value of p, we don't know it quite yet, but we can find it by setting 1 over 4p equal to -1/4. Now what would we do to both sides? Multiply both sides by 4p, because 4p and 4p will cancel, leaving us with just, well, here the 4 and 4 would simplify, wouldn't it? Which would just leave us with -p is equal to 1, or p is equal to, so the value of p is -1. That's it. Questions on how we found h, k, or p? Okay. Well, what's the vertex? Vertex is the point hk, yes? H is? K is? Well, focus is our h comma k plus p. We already said h is -2. Now the y value is k plus p. It would be 0 because it would be 1 plus -1. 1 plus -1 is 0. Now the directrix would be y is equal to what? K minus p. So that would be what? 1 minus -1, yes? What is 1 minus -1? And last but not least, the axis of symmetry would be x is equal to -2. And that's it. So what is the main thing that we have to do for any of these here? So I need to find what? The values of h, k, and p. Because once I find all three, then we're good. Okay, let's look at the next one. So who can tell me what the value of h is? I hear 3. Anybody disagree? Because I'll tell you I will. It is 1. Because x is equal to what? 1 over 4p parentheses what? Y minus k squared plus h. So because it is x equals and not y equals, h is 1. K would be 3. Does anybody have a guess at what p would be? It would be 4. P would be 4. Because what are we saying? 1/4 is equal to 1/16, yes? So as long as there's a 1 on top, we could really set 4p equals 16 and get the answer. Now the main reason, again, we use 1 over 4p equals 1 over 16 is just on the off chance that we don't have 1/16. Because if we had 2/17, then we'll need to do this setup to actually get it. But if we do it this way, we'll still get the same answer. Because I can multiply both sides by 4p. 4p and 4p will cancel, telling me 1 is equal to, well, 4p over 16. Or we can say p over 4. Multiply both sides by 4, and I get p is equal to 4. Questions on this here? Isn't it kind of odd that when p gets bigger, the number in front of the parentheses gets smaller? Have y'all noticed that? Because here when it's 4, I got 1/16, yes? Well, here p is -1, and it's -1/4. So it got a little bit smaller, yes? Well, I'd say with our 1/4 p, let's say p is 1/64. That'd be 1 over 4 times 1/64, which is 1 over 4/64, which is really just saying 1 over 1/16. All the 1 divided by 1/16 is the same as 1 times 16 over 1, which is just 16. So wait a minute, the value of P got smaller, but the overall number in front of the parentheses got bigger, yes? So it's almost if that number in front of the parentheses is getting smaller than 1/4, probably going to be a whole number. If it's getting bigger than 1/4, probably going to be a fraction. Now, does it guarantee to tell us what the fraction is or what the whole number is going to be? No, it kind of gives us an idea of what we should expect to see happen. Kind of a way to check and make sure we got the right answer. Now, let's go on and finish this out. What would the vertex be? One comma 3, h comma k. H is 1, k is 3. The focus is h comma k plus p, right? H plus p comma k, yes? So h plus p, 1 plus 4 is? Comma 3. Directrix is x is equal to h minus p. So 1 minus 4 is almost negative 3. 1 minus 4 would be negative 3. And the axis of symmetry, y equals 3. And that's it. Questions on this here? Now, we won't go into a standard form to this here, giving it to us in ax squared plus bx plus c. So they're not going to give us y equals ax squared plus bx plus c and have us rewrite it in I'm not going to have y'all do that. Because one, we actually need the understanding behind completing the square and using those operations to get there. But also, we've gone over how to find the vertex in these parts from our negative b over 2a, comma fm negative b over 2a. That would give us the vertex. It also gives us the axis of symmetry, because that would give us the vertex axis of symmetry, so the only thing we'd be missing is the directrix and the focus. But we're not too worried about that. We also won't do it in the form of this here, which would be our one opening to the left and right. So we're not going to worry about either one of those. $44, $45, or $46. Which one do y'all want to look at? Because we'll do at least one more. $44, $45, or $46? $45? Okay. If y'all want to look at 44 later, it is in the other two videos, because I do have that posted up there. So 45, H, K, and P. So what would the value of H be? K is negative 4. And does anybody have a guess at what P is? That's a little harder to tell just because of negative 3 going with 1/4.
So from the section that we started,
yes.
All of it on this, from 2.3.
Yeah, so the first half of it is 2.32a, and this here is going to be 2.32b. Now, we do know that the 1 over for P is lining up with the negative 3. Yes, because that's where the 1 over 4p would line up, where we can find the value of p. What would our first step be? We're going to multiply both sides by 4p. Now here the 4p and 4p will simplify out, leaving us with 1 is equal to negative 12p. And lastly, we're going to divide both sides by negative 12, telling us that p is equal to negative 1/12. Well, kind of going along with what we said earlier, right? The value p got smaller, but the overall value in front of it got bigger. Yes. Well, I think you drew it for the art contest last year. Vertex is going to be what? T negative 4. Well, the focus, since it's x equals, would be h plus p comma k. So h plus p would be 2 plus negative 1/12. Does anybody know what 2 plus negative 1/12 is? Yes. Or because 11/12 unfortunately is not one of the 9/6. So 1.916 repeating. Yep. Well, they round after a certain point. Because if you do 1/3 in the calculator, we know that 1/3 is 0.3 repeated indefinitely. And they'll normally put 1.3, and then it'll do that, or 2. I just realized after I did it, I'm like, I don't know why I just apologized. Was I apologizing essentially to myself there? I curled the little mat and I apologized to myself. Okay. So it'd be like 2/3 is 0.6 repeated, but in a calculator, 0.6 repeated is 0.6666, and then they finish it off with a 7. They just round it up. Now, pick the one that you want to use for this here. As long as it's the same answer, I will take it. So we could say 23 over 12. Or you can put 1 and 11/12. Or you can put 1.916 repeated. I mean, putting the repeated one would be a little weird. Because if it gives you a nice decimal answer like number 44, because for the focus on 44, the one with the fraction, because it would give us a fraction, was dealing with 1/4. So 0.25. That's not a bad fraction to deal with. Here, the 1.916 repeated, that's a little funky. But I'll still take it. Comma negative 4. The directrix is x equals what? 2 minus 1/12? Well, negative and negative make a. So what would this be as a mixed number? I don't feel I can do that in your head. 2 and 1/12, because we can combine them. Or it's going to be 25/12 or whatever 1/12 is as a decimal. And again, pick which one you want to use, because I will take any and all of the same version of the same number with these fractions. And lastly, the axis of symmetry would be y equals -4. Are there any questions on any of this here? And that is it. The assignment for this here is a worksheet.